Return
Let's
with us
get
now
spayed.
to those thrilling
Let's
days
keep
of yesteryear.
those tomcats
Keep
away.
Crack Radio.
You've got better things to do than have 6 kittens who feed off you. You know that life is sweet when you're not in heat. So don't be afraid. Let's get spayed.
Let's get neutered. You're so much more than a reproducer. It don't mean that you failed if you don't spend your nights chasing tail. You'll learn to be calm when your equipment's gone. And you'll be cuter when you're neutered.
To Vegan World Radio, live once again here on KPFT, the People's Radio, on this 3rd of February as we enter the dark times, it seems, but the days are getting longer, so just waiting for that pendulum to swing back the other direction. And of course, animals are always the most vulnerable, the most susceptible to what goes wrong in society, and we are here to speak for them in the Vegan World Radio program. And we've been doing that for many a year, just like many of the programs here on KPFT. And we appreciate all of the listeners who have supported us throughout the years and the fund drives and in other ways, and kept KPFT on the air with all the great things that it has to offer. I appreciate you all for listening. Great Open Journal show tonight. We're going to be followed by, as always, the Whole Mother program. I'm sure they got a great lineup for that as well, so you might stay tuned for that. But joining us tonight, once again, is a very interesting couple of people who've got a lot to share with the program. Dr. Crystal Heath is a veterinarian and executive director of Our Honor, a nonprofit that empowers veterinary students, veterinarians, and other animal professionals to speak their conscience and to work for the best interests of all species. And she's been on the show before. Welcome back. And we also, hey, thank you. And we also want to welcome for the first time Skyjack Morgan. He is an award-winning writer, activist, YouTuber. He operated the OETA abduction and Hell on Wheels tours all over America. Maybe he'll tell us about that tonight. He also appeared at over 60 university campuses. He's engaged in numerous speaking engagements and has carried out animal rights actions and demos in hundreds of cities. So welcome to you both.
Thanks. It's great being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is awesome.
Well, I understand that you guys have a lot to say about the condition that animals live in as they're affected by what people's actions in our society. What is the state of animal justice in February 2025?
Who you want to go first, Sky?
the state of animal justice.
Of the animals,
How's it going out there? Or what do you guys want to talk about? What's on your mind?
There's a lot on our mind. I guess the state of animal justice is still, the arc is bending toward justice, I'd like to say, and animals are certainly in the news a lot lately. So I think that it's it's more opportunities than ever to speak up for them, and more issues facing them. So I think it's a good time to go vegan, and it's a good time to speak up for animals.
Yeah, I mean, so much is needed right now. There's a lot going on with the new administration, a lot of drama, new media blackout, which we hope to dive into. I've been interviewed by several different press lately. Salon interviewed me to discuss the current administration's media blackout, which I hope we can dive into a little bit more. And I've also been investigating how much we have spent to bail out these large corporations in response to avian influenza. And you would think with the Department of Government Efficiency that maybe they would want to do something about that and stop giving millions of dollars to billion-dollar corporations. So, yeah.
Well, interesting thought. And I know you guys have a lot of things you want to talk about, but just very briefly, I was thinking about this. It's been in periods of conservative hegemony that people have actually, the rate of people becoming vegetarian actually peaked. Like this is my theory, maybe I'm wrong, but I think 1890s, coming out of the 1950s, coming out of the Reagan era in the 80s, haven't those kind of been the peaks of people of turning towards opening their minds towards justice for animals? Like, I'm wondering, is there something about reacting to, the rich getting richer and conservative fascism and the billionaires taking over that maybe gets people to think more ethically? Or what do you think?
I think people are encouraged. Yeah, I think people are encouraged when you mention those eras and you think of the music of those eras, right? I don't know if you're like me, and when I hear about the past, I'm a music buff, and I start thinking about punk rock and how much veganism and vegetarianism, just critical thinking, is kind of advertised through music. And it's funny because that's something that I've been focusing on so much, is that, hey, we need to be holding those power structures accountable and questioning them constantly and challenging that authority. And when you see them grab for it, when you see these despots grab for power, you have to push back. And when you push back, sometimes it's because you said hegemony, and it's those hegemonic structures that become apparent, right? They crystallize, and you see them for the first time sometimes, like Toto's pulling back that curtain in front of the wizard, and you start questioning everything. And maybe it's when you start questioning the food systems and what we're doing to animals, and you start making changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have to spin the narrative, because the corporations, they're going to spend billions and billions of dollars to try to get us to eat more meat. And, can we resist that? Can the people rise up and see how they're being manipulated, and how we're forced to pay these huge companies? And will we rebel against that? We shall see.
Yeah, and this time with the we can call it conservatism, but I'm not even sure that's true. But with like certain things, I mean, the sands are shifting, right? And when those shifting sands, when you start looking at them, the pricing structure can change dramatically. I've been thinking a lot about the tariffs and what that means for animals. It's going to drastically affect the price of flesh in America. There's no way around it. What will we do, and how will we adjust?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all remains to be seen. How will we adjust? Right now, a lot of the scientific research that was being spent on animal agriculture is on hold right now. A lot of research into infectious disease outbreaks is on hold. Will that lead to more animals getting sick? Will that lead to temporarily perhaps worse animal welfare while more animals get sick? But will this mean that the industry is unsustainable, and they'll have to pivot, and maybe they'll see a future in animal-free methods of food production instead? That very much could be the future.
And we know it's unsustainable, right? Like it's so clearly unsustainable as they poison our rivers and streams. It's so clearly unsustainable as it's 73% of the income of these dairy farms is from the taxpayer, is through subsidy. It's so clearly unsustainable for anyone who takes a second to look at it. And that's what I mean. Maybe when people start looking, I just think that it's immediately obvious, and hopefully more and more people will be looking.
And yet, Nebraska's governor, Jim Pillen, is trying to ban lab-grown meat. Here he is, a veterinarian, hog farmer, governor of Nebraska, taking millions of dollars in bailouts for his hog business, and also controlling the laws and banning competitors in his own state, preventing us access to animal-free food. Wild.
It's so weird, that one. Crystal, have you ever spent any time in Nebraska?
I have not, actually. My sister actually used to live there, but I never
really
visited when she was there. Yeah.
So my dad is from Nebraska. So I've been to Nebraska a few times, and I just did when I was on that PETA tour that was mentioned at the top of the show. I stopped in many cities in Nebraska, and talked with people there and did some outreach, and it's weird because everyone there seems so that Midwestern kind of openness
Nice.
and yeah, nice, yeah, like that Midwestern vibe. It doesn't get much more Midwestern than Nebraska, and also kind of really into freedom and liberty. And I don't really see how that's freedom and liberty to limit people's choices
Hmm.
when it comes to how does that speak to the American liberty to have a governor saying that they want to ban um like I'm not into lab grown flesh. I'll just put that out there.
Yeah.
I'm not interested. But why are they how does that speak to your sense of liberty as an American? And especially like, it seems very weird to me that Pillin would be going on that route.
It's very strange. And it you'd think that they would be listening to themselves and being like, don't you see what you guys are doing? Are you really
Hmm.
that threatened by lab grown meat? Is your industry like it must be a big threat to them
Yeah.
to take this extreme measure to actually like ban this product in their state. That's quite something. But and yet here we are.
I wonder what happens then. So like Florida banned it, and now did it pass in? Has it already? Is it already a done deal in Nebraska, or is it just something that's still
I don't know the
unfolding?
current status of it actually. I think it might still be unfolding.
But
But yeah,
Governor
I know.
Pillen wants it banned, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, do these bans work? Like, so so Nebraska's gonna have this on the books, and they don't ban cigarettes, they don't ban any of these other things, but they ban
But this,
this,
not
which
fur, not declawing
not
cats,
for
not
yeah,
like what are
not
good things we could child labor might be,
no, yeah,
you
they won't
know?
ban child labor. I remember when all those child labor where were all the child labor problems in slaughterhouses? So no, don't ban child labor because then we might have to shut the slaughterhouses, but ban the lab grown meat. It's not even here yet. How are you banning stuff that isn't even here? They're banning even the research into it.
Yeah. And here's the other irony. At the same time, while they're banning that, they are fighting back against California's Prop 12, which
Right.
was a
Gestation
law
crates.
passed in California that would prevent some pork from pigs whose mothers were kept in gestation crates.
Mm.
The California voters wanted all flesh from pigs sold in California to come from mothers who were given at least 25 square feet of space, which
Mm.
would take them out of gestation crates, which gestation crates, if you don't know, are these 2.5 by 7 foot stalls where the pigs just stand and they don't have enough room to turn around or even lay down comfortably in most cases. And they're
So
just
hold
lined
on.
up
Let me see this. So it's 2.5 feet by
two and a
seven
half by
feet.
7.
So 2.5 feet. Like I feel like I'm 2.5 feet wide. Am I?
Mm-hmm.
I'm the size of a sow. Okay, so 2.5 feet, and I'm 6'5". So if you put me in a gestation crate, I would not be able to move at all. I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
It's that sounds like a medieval. I was in Amsterdam once, and I went to the medieval torture museum, and they had devices like the one that you've just described, the gestation crate. Maybe there will be in the future museums of the horrible tools we use to torture animals. Maybe that would be it'll be like, oh, it's crazy that we ever did that. Just like these
Mm-hmm.
museums and okay, so gestation crates and
The
California's like,
bridal, what is that? The skull, the thing that they put on the
yeah.
woman's face. Uh,
Oh, the
there's that.
oh
I forget
yeah,
what that's called.
the gossips, it's like the
Yeah, the
gossip's fold
gossip
or
thing.
something. Yeah, and it goes in your mouth so you can't tell a
Uh-huh.
lie.
You
Oh my
can't talk.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, crazy stuff people used to do, and we think of it as these kind of, it's supposed to be when you go to this museum, it's like a horror show, and it's the same kind of thing with when I think of gestation crate. So California banned
Uh-huh.
them, right? They don't use them in
Well,
California.
so you cannot sell pig meat if a pig's mother was confined to a gestation crate. some pig meat, not even all pig meat, only like whole pig meat. If it's ground up, you can sell it in California, only whole pig meat. But this law passed in California, went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court heard it. But who wrote an amicus brief? All of these pork industry people wrote amicus briefs trying to get the Supreme Court to overturn Prop 12. So they're saying, we don't want you to restrict us that way. We want to be able to force our pig meat onto Californians.
Who voted, subverting the will of the people who voted
for this.
Having that flesh in their state. Yeah.
We are going to ban the sale of cultivated meat in our state. Like, do we see the hypocrisy here?
I mean, it's not wasted on me. But that's the SCOTUS, right? So SCOTUS, they said that California's ban is constitutional. It stands.
Yeah,
right?
it stands.
Okay. So now, they wasted all this time and money and wasted all of America's time and money to do this and lost. And now they're banning. I guess their ban's going to hold as well, right? It'll hold. Like we're not going to be able to fight it.
Well, this ban, who knows? Maybe we could fight it at the Supreme Court. Not sure, but I mean, they are still fighting Prop 12 in the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill is still being haggled. And in fact, the American Veterinary Medical Association even wrote a letter in strong support of this one section of the Farm Bill, section 12007, which has language that would overturn Prop 12. So the pork industry is still viewing this as a major threat and we have to somehow subvert the will of the people for the interests of the pork industry and their economics.
And their ability to torture pigs in these strange devices called gestation crates. So this gestation crate thing, Crystal, like we just were at VMX and you're reminding me of so VMX. Can you tell everyone what VMX is so I don't just go off on this tangent alone?
VMX is the largest veterinary conference in the world. 27,000 people. It stands for Veterinary Meeting Expo. Yeah. It was in Orlando, Florida. I spoke there about activism in the veterinary profession. We had a booth there, and yeah.
Okay, so at the VMX, I'm still in Florida, of course, and they there was a slide in one of the presentations that we saw, one of these talks, that it kind of gave just brief history, just bullet points of the history of flesh farming in America, of animal protein production in America. And it was mostly, they use terms like factory farming. I don't like to use that term because when 99% of farms are factory farms, it's safe to me to say it's all factory, all farms are factory farms. Why do we even call them that anymore? Mm-hmm. So these like factories for flesh. But one of the slides said that it mentioned gestation crates. And it's weird because the pork industry wants to fight as if they cannot live without gestation crates. They want to fight for their right to put pigs in these tiny little cages. Mother pigs only, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's just so disgusting to put any mother through this. And they act like they can't live without it. But this slide was saying that the gestation crates were invented in the 1980s.
Yeah, so it's a relatively new thing.
It's brand new, man. It's 40 years old. I'm older than the gestation crate. Mm-hmm. So it's weird that they are going to fight it as if they can't make money without gestation crate. Clearly they were making money.
Absolutely. But the pork, if you look at the growth of the pork industry, it's like tech. The amount of growth in this industry over the years is absolutely astonishing. And we need to figure out, and it's so funny now, that we're trying to bring in cultivated meat and all of these other things. They're like, what about the jobs, or like ban slaughterhouses? Yeah. What about the jobs, lost jobs? Well, how many jobs because we lost when we introduced gestation crates?
Yeah, how many jobs were lost? Yes.
so much easier to take care of so many pigs with just a few workers when you have them all lined up in these gestation crates
Locked up
where
in
they're
little
kept
cages.
for 114 days of their
You're
pregnancy.
absolutely right.
So
How
let's
many
create
jobs
some
were
jobs
lost?
by taking the pigs out of gestation crates if you're so worried about creating jobs.
That's what
Which
they
of
should have done.
course,
I remember when we voted for Prop 12, I was a California voter when that happened, and they didn't mention that in the explanation. They should, see, this is the problem with vegans, Crystal. We
mhm,
never talk, now that we have a conservative leadership in all three branches of government. Unbelievable. All three, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. All three branches of government are locked in for the conservative side of the aisle. And they're the ones that say they care about jobs. We should be saying
mhm.
ban gestation crates nationwide for the sake of the worker. We just need to stop trampling on our ability to work.
But of course, now we're deporting a lot of people. So we'll see if that works out for them.
Production will simply have to go
It's a
down.
bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see if it works out for them.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I mean, that is one of my favorite things going on right now for animals, right? Is if we can go back, because we did talk about, all right, so this ties in with tariffs and deportation and how that affects animals. And Salon had an article to, I guess it came out yesterday on, and they talked about Trump administration's communication freeze restricted access to critical bird flu information. And it's one of those, so we're talking about how the government is now purposely obfuscating or maybe accidentally, but now you can't access the information about the bird flu outbreak and how it's affecting the animals in these
yeah.
industries.
Yeah, especially related to this particular article is about dairy veterinarians. We have data on dairy workers that 7% of all dairy workers are serologically positive for H5N1, which means
Serologically, what does
they
that
have
mean?
been exposed. They may not be sick, they may not be shedding it, but they have antibodies basically for H5N1. And we wanted to see, well, what's the risk to dairy vets? The nature of their job is a little bit different. Are they more likely to get it? Are they less likely to get it? And I've been waiting for these results to come out. The CDC was going to have a webinar on this and give the results. And now there's this media blackout. The webinar was canceled. We do not have access to the results. The results are nowhere to be seen. So Elizabeth, what's her last name? Alinka?
She's got a hard to pronounce last name.
Lavinka.
Lavinka, yeah.
Lavinka reached out to me to discuss this. So I'm featured in the article too. And I say how the Trump administration sort of initiated this pause to set up this process for review and prioritization of communications, which is very concerning because I have concerns about how they handled COVID-19. I mean, famously slaughterhouses working, used the Defense Production Act to keep slaughterhouses going.
During
Workers
COVID.
got sick.
Yeah.
These were nituses of infection that ended up, exacerbating the COVID-19 outbreak.
So what's interesting to me, though, is that a lot of it's not just a Trump thing. Like other presidents, they do these media blackouts during the changing of the guards, right? They don't know who's who. They want to get their people in before they have official statements coming out from.
I feel like this is a little bit more than that, though.
It's a little bit more than that. Why? Why is it different?
I feel like we've never seen this level of not able to communicate. This level of studies, research is now being stopped. I've never heard of webinars being canceled, CDC webinars being canceled.
But could that be because we
happened
never
before.
have had an outbreak like this? This is the worst H5N1 outbreak in history. It's the first bird flu in history. It's the worst American livestock outbreak since foot and mouth disease in the what was it, 1920s or something.
Well,
I
but
mean,
we had, COVID at the end of the first Trump administration. Then we had
yeah,
Biden take over.
yeah.
I don't remember anything like this. This
No, I don't
sort of,
remember. I feel like when Biden took over, he did have blackouts with exceptions, like the CDC kept going, the virologist, because they didn't change. Fauci still had a job, right? They didn't switch
mhm,
everybody. And maybe that's also the thing. Not everybody lost their jobs when Biden took over. A lot of people kept their jobs. And in this case, it's a fire sale. Like everyone's getting fired. And that's, it's
mhm.
pretty funny because you're fired was his whole thing, right? He's literally firing the government. And so it takes a while. Like, I don't know, your first 100 days, and you've had a new job before, right? You got to figure out what your, how your voicemail, how you access, like, you got to get your email right. How are you going to log in? It's hard when you start a new job. And no one's even there to do it with you because everyone just got fired. You're walking into an empty building and taking over. It's gonna be
But
rough.
usually, the heads of these departments, their terms
Yeah,
overlap
right.
different administrations so that there's a smooth
Yeah,
transition.
tell that to
And
Christopher Wray,
who's Christopher Ray?
the
Oh no, this
FBI
one.
director who just got pushed
Yeah.
out and he's no longer with us, no longer with us in no longer in
Oh
government. Yeah, he
man.
yeah, he had a even though he had I think another 2 years left in his appointment, he's gone,
Yeah.
pushed out.
It's kind of abrupt. Like, oh, now we're taking over everything in a very short period of time. We're just going for it. And
Yeah, but
it's,
when unfortunately that leaves us a lot in the dark.
yeah.
And but I don't think that we're the only ones. Okay, so I understand like that bit of fear, right? That okay, so our vets getting our cow vets getting bird flu, and I get that. But don't you think the industry's got to be afraid too? They got to be shaking in their boots a little bit. These industries.
I know. I wonder
No.
what they're thinking. Do they think that they can have control over the Trump administration? I mean, we know billionaires seem to have a lot of influence with
That's
the guy.
true.
I
That's
think
true.
they're probably thinking their interests are protected. It's like we're among the billionaire class now that the oligarchs are taking over. Uh, don't worry, they're
Maybe.
the smart ones who are figuring out how to feed the world. Uh,
Maybe you're right,
you
Crystal. And I
know,
think under anybody else, I think I'd be afraid of that. But this guy seemed to only like the cool billionaires, the ones that know Joe Rogan and have huge media outlets. He likes those guys. I didn't see any oil tycoons and the Cargill family. They weren't at the
because they're
inauguration.
smart. They're
Oh,
smart. This is how
they're the
they've
real
done
smart
all of
ones.
the
Yeah.
this is how they've become the wealthiest family in
Hmm.
the world. This is why they have 21 billionaires in their family. They're
Yeah.
smart. They know how to fly
Hmm.
under the radar and just have good vibes of we're feeding the world while committing mass atrocities,
That
doing
is smart. Like if you want to escape the guillotine, you better have
Mhm.
you better have some humility. You know what I mean? You better be real chill. Like, oh no, we're just real cool. Like we barely there. We're just feeding America. And then we're not doing anything wrong
Yeah,
over
no, they're
here.
sitting behind the scenes laughing at Mark Zuckerberg and Elon
Yeah, I
Musk.
guess so.
They're going,
Dang it.
better
Dang it.
you
You're
than
probably
me.
right. Dang
Yep.
it. All right, but still, like, okay, so they've got to at least be a little bit worried about because they're going to be rich either way. They're so
Mm-hmm.
billionaire. They're billionaire, and they
Millionaires. Yes.
they're billionaires. Okay, so but they've got to at least be worried about they're diversified, so the billionaires might not be worried, but all those little farmers that live under them, like the vertically integrated farmer, chicken farmer, like because a
Oh, the
lot of
contractors, they're
yeah,
always screwed and they
right,
will always be.
so they
Um,
probably feel really screwed right now because like all of a sudden their workforce is being
they have no
deported.
workers.
They have no workers, right? They're who knows about the subsidies? Those could evaporate. You don't know. Like things are just money just gets evaporated lately. Like they're just closing the aid, right? They're closing all sorts of offices and saying that this money's just gone. Okay, so
Mhm.
that could go away really easily. They don't know. And the tariffs could really just drive up the prices and the demand on American protein productions. So they could be working harder than ever, making less money than ever. That could put you out of business. That
Yeah,
could...
and we've seen this story before, but luckily there's the Farm Service Agency. So when they can't pay their
Mm,
mortgage and they go bankrupt, their mortgages are insured by the federal government. So
yeah,
the government bails out the bank who gave them the mortgage, then they can sell it to a new schmuck who comes along,
the new
takes
schmuck.
up their farm, and they can still do their contracts with whatever big chicken company, and even get extra, home equity loan or whatever, an extra mortgage to upgrade the facility to make it even better for the big
Mm,
corporation to then house their chickens there. And when those chickens get sick and get and die of avian influenza or are exterminated because of avian influenza,
yeah.
it's not that contract farmer who gets all the money. It's the big corporation, the Tysons, the Jenny O's, the whoever.
Right. They get the bailout. There's not the
They
little...
get the little guy gets pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, the little dude in
compared.
Nebraska fighting,
Yeah.
I'm gonna vote against this stuff. That guy, he's still getting screwed, like he
Yeah.
thinks he's voting against lab grown meat, and meanwhile he's taking it in the other side because of these billionaires. Okay, so
Exactly.
all right, but that still means I'm still trying to stay positive, Crystal. You're making
Okay.
it hard.
Oh, sorry.
You're making it hard to stay
yes.
positive. But this still means that as change is occurring, you're still seeing like they're turning the bottom of the fishbowl. There's all this confusion and scary, the blackouts and indemnity payments that might not arrive because money's been frozen, assets are being frozen. Who knows? Elon Musk, he could tomorrow decide that he wants to freeze indemnity payments to chicken farmers. Tomorrow
That
we
would
could do that.
be, well, not chicken farmers, chicken corporations.
Right.
That would be great if he did that. If he stopped, I mean, Jenny-O Turkey Store has gotten $120 million of our money right now. Cow Main
Yeah.
Foods, $44 million of our money. And Sentient Media just wrote an article about this too, which features some of our data and going into just how much money we have given these corporations.
Yeah, the Sentient Media article, that's a great article about how much of our money is going into this horrible system, whether or not we're vegan. Like, we sit here and tell people, like, go vegan, stop eating animals, and that's the right thing to do. In fact, it's the only choice for a thinking person. But even if you're vegan, you're still giving these companies money. It's galling. $40 million going to Cal Maine. That's ridiculous. But it could be just on a whim. The guy puts down his, Elon Musk, he stops playing Diablo 4 for a couple minutes, and he goes, I'm gonna make America great again. And then he just says no more indemnity. That could happen.
That could happen. That would be a big change. It would level the playing field. It would allow animal-free methods of food production to
We are living in chaotic
expand.
times, and in these chaotic times, usually leading up to a world war in history. Usually it's right before a world war, so I'm a little worried there. But in the realm of veganism, like, a lot of times that happens, and farmers start doing weird stuff too. They start going, I'm done with all this. There's easier ways to turn a buck, and there always have been easier ways to turn a buck than waking up and doing these things like hooking up animals to weird robotic udder suckers. Like we could get rid of this. Like, there's easier ways to make a dollar, and especially if the government's not just going to hand our money over to them all the time, just pitchforking money into the incinerator. So this might be good for animals. Maybe this is the time that...
Yeah, you would think they would be all about the board cow milk, where you could make cow's milk without cows, like via precision fermentation. This is more efficient. If you want government efficiency, board cow milk is government efficiency, because 73% of dairy revenues right now come from some form of subsidy. So let's take the cow out of the milk production process. Let's streamline this whole method of protein production. And you need fewer workers to do that.
No, we got to tell them we're
Well,
going to create jobs. It's going to create good jobs for
well,
Americans.
good jobs for Americans.
That's what we need. Good jobs
so
for
you can-
Americans. That really speaks to the
Mhm.
that Elon Musk, he really cares about that. And like he's what else does he doesn't care about the environment. Remember he said that killing cows is good for the I mean he's one of those guys, right? Thinks that killing cows is good for the planet. This craziness.
I mean, we got to get him to look at the data here. And that's another thing. So all of the Green New Deal stuff is cut. Like they're not going to do that anymore. A lot of that was I don't know how much of the federal government was, but here in California, there's these low carbon fuel standard credits that are going to these dairies. They cover the manure lagoons with tarps, capture the methane, sell these low carbon fuel standard credits. And a lot of the dairies made more money doing that than they did by selling milk. So all of these green initiatives, all these subsidies going to beef and dairy and other animal-based protein producers to greenify their systems, and all that research is going away, which could be a good thing.
It could be a good thing. And if we are able to, if we're able to get him to tweet about, he doesn't care about the environment, right? But he cares about efficiency, supposedly. Maybe we need to be, maybe that's the new vegan mantra. Maybe that's what activists need to be saying. This is not only unsustainable. Unsustainable is, we talk about that. It sounds like we're talking about the environment, sustainability and all that. Inefficiency is the new buzzword. It's inefficient to feed a cow, 50% of California's water supply. Donald Trump keeps talking about the smelt is a fish that lives. He's always talking about the smelt fish, right? The Delta smelt. Like, it's the Delta smelt lit the fires in the Palisades. It's all that Delta smelt's fault. If we could just stop that fish from playing with fire. We told him 1,000,000 times. And he kept doing it, that smelt. But if instead of doing that, talk about the Delta smelt, we could talk about the fact that California uses 50% of its water supply for...
I mean, specifically, the Colorado River is the big deal, and for Texas listeners here, it right now, like 79% of the Colorado's river flow goes to agriculture. 55% of it goes to livestock feed. That's it's like 1 trillion gallons, I guess it is. Over 1 trillion gallons goes to livestock feed. It's just huge numbers.
It's not efficient, I would say, putting 50% of the Colorado River to livestock feed.
Yeah.
This is before they drink a drop, right? Like it's
less than 1% is actually what they drink.
Right.
The vast majority of it is going to grow alfalfa, hay, grasses, corn, silage. So a lot of it is dairy, food. And they always talk about, I don't know if you've seen all the animal ag propaganda, but it's like the dairy cows eat food that we can't eat. But their food is being grown on land that could grow food that we could eat.
Or we could turn it into a park. I don't care what we do with it. Like, it doesn't have to be. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to actually use every square foot of land. You know that. Like, we could just have wide open spaces. I mean, I think that's pretty cool. That aren't growing corn and soy for cows, chickens, and pigs. But
about 1/3 of our arable land right now, which is the land that can grow crops, is going to grow crops to feed livestock.
That's
and they
inefficient.
They talk about how livestock are upcyclers. They use the waste. So they always wanted to make the argument that you don't eat the whole soybean, like the soy hulls and the rice hulls and the almond hulls. Those can go to feed livestock. But even if we just threw that away, we'd still be better off, even if we didn't feed them.
If they were only feeding them the stuff that we didn't eat after you process just enough soy for the humans, and you only had the waste after that you were allowed to feed to cows, chickens, and pigs, there wouldn't be much. There wouldn't be enough to sustain all of these animals. We've at any given time we're killing 10 billion chickens every year in America. Something like 300 million pigs. I think it's 100 something million cows are being killed every year in America, and it's completely inefficient to be feeding, watering, and boarding all of these animals. We can't feed them with our waste. They outnumber us by billions. Like,
and they always say like, oh, what about all the soybeans you're going to grow? Like, we can't feed the world. Well, it turns out the American Soybean Association says 90% of U.S. soybeans produced are used as high quality protein source for animal feed.
Animals. Yeah, 90%. 90%
of the soybeans we grow goes to animal feed.
Crystal, when I was driving that truck for PETA and all across America, I drove across the United States like 4 times last year. And you know what I saw a lot of? It was amazing. Like on one side of the road, corn as far as the eye can see. On the other side, soy as far as the eye could see. And the eye could see pretty far in places like Nebraska. And you could see really far because it's flat. And there's no way. There's only 350 million Americans or something like that. There's not, enough people to eat all that soy. Like, I'm vegan. I don't eat that much soy. I mean, I eat some tofu, but I mean, I know there's soy oil in my peanut butter, but like I can't really think. I don't eat that much soy. I mean, I can't eat that much edamame.
Yeah.
It's a lot of edamame.
Well, we could certainly start feeding the world, maybe, with all of that stuff that we're growing, or we could grow different crops too. Monoculture agriculture ain't all that great. And we could, diversify.
Grow nothing. That's a great thing about being vegan. You could just have the land be wild again and prevent the next dust bowl and prevent soil degradation. We could cycle through land and just have much more of it wild.
Yeah.
Maybe give more land to the wild animals. It's sad that there aren't so many wild animals. What's the percentage of wild animals on Earth? The mammalian biomass is like.
Oh, I have that right in front of me, actually. So we have 60% of the biomass on Earth is farmed animals. 36% is humans. Only 4% are wild animals. Of birds on Earth, you have 70% of the birds on Earth are farmed poultry birds. Yeah. Only 30% are wild birds.
I love the birds. That's the bird thing brings. So the first one was mammals, right? So mammals there almost are no wild mammals left. 4% of mammalian biomass on planet Earth is wild. So basically, when you go see those wild horses out in I saw the wild horses in Wyoming, and I'm like, let's stop rounding these guys up. There aren't that many. There's only 4% of mammals that are allowed to live wild in this world. So sad. But the birds, so 70% of birds are enslaved, right? They're owned by somebody else. They're not free living
in cages. The average lived existence of a bird on Earth is a bird trapped in a cage of some kind, in a barn, in a building.
Not just average, but the overwhelming majority.
Yeah. Absolutely.
70%. That's almost, we haven't had a president win 70% of the, that's way more than the majority, right? 70% is a lot. So 70% of birds are in cages, and usually in little tiny cages, if you care how big a cage is. Now, and yet every time bird flu comes up, Crystal, I'm always hearing that they want to kill wild birds. Because they blame the wild birds for bird flu.
Like, we have to order nature. Like, those ones are the reason that somehow these big buildings that are, biosecure facilities are somehow being put at risk by these wild birds out there who are out there spreading bird flu. And this whole modern intensive animal agriculture thing relatively new thing. We brought up the gestation crates before. It's not something that existed before. And they always talk about what are the unintended consequences of us banning something like gestation crates or banning battery cages.
Yeah.
What are the unintended consequences? Well, nobody ever asks, what are the unintended consequences of depending on a method of food production that requires us to confine en masse this many animals in such a small space that are genetically similar in close contact with human beings? What are the unintended consequences of this method of protein production?
It's almost as if, like, I don't know, you know Dan Carlin, he talks about like the
hardcore history, Dan
hardcore
Carlin.
history. Shout out to that great podcast about history. He talks about like the lifespan being a 50-year period for most of the history of humanity. About 50 years is how long a human being lived until pretty recently. So it's almost like it takes 50 years to learn a lesson. And we are just now starting to understand what those unintended consequences are of taking tiny animals and putting them in tiny cages and exploiting them and breeding them for the traits to amplify the traits that we find more
we want to
profitable.
increase production efficiency, increase growth, increase the number of eggs they're producing, make cows produce 20 times more milk than nature intended.
That was another of the slides at the guy at the VMX at the veterinary expo. About 20 times the amount. I mean, wild. I mean, I think it's truly remarkable that human beings have figured this out, but holy crap, that's evil. We have these big brains, and what do we do with them? We use them to exploit others, and it's just horrifying.
Or we could use our big brains to like figure out how to make protein without animals, which we already know how to do.
Which we're doing.
We're
doing that too. Or to extract wonderful protein from plants and make it delicious. We figured that one out too. We do some pretty cool stuff, right? But I guess my point was that those unintended consequences, we're just discovering that we killed all of the fish. We poisoned all the rivers and streams. What do we poison with? Poop. It was all the poop that we did. Or, why do we have soil degradation? Because the last 50 years we've gone crazy, and we've feeding all this. We've farmed all this land so that we have robotized that, so that we could feed these animals, and now the consequences, we're discovering them. Or even the global warming issue. If I know Ellen Moose doesn't care about the environment, but the methane and all the ruminants,
climate change. I think a lot of people think, grazing, a cow grazing, that's the most natural thing in the world. And you want to stop cows from grazing on grass? Like what is wrong with you vegans? But we don't talk about the sheer numbers of cows.
So let's talk about that. So they don't talk about the number and what we're feeding them, and that it's like the worst. It's like a perfect storm. We feed them the thing that makes them burp and fart the most, and then and we've bred them to do it at an amplified rate and all of that, and to get bigger and fatter as quick as possible. But in one of your talk at VMX, the Veterinarian Expo in Orlando last week, you were talking about buffalo, and people are like, well, the buffalo did it. So what's the problem?
We had buffalo roaming the plains. We were like, there was no climate change, methane. So in the 1500s, we had 30 to 60 million bison roaming the North American plains. And then we killed them off, the European settlers, and their numbers dropped to 325.
So the American bison, are they ruminants? Do they chew cud and do all the stuff?
Absolutely.
So they're more they're like a cow, kind of.
Yeah. But, you're producing more methane when you're growing, and especially your modern dairy cow too, like producing massive quantities of milk by eating grass, all this stuff. So the buffalo who are older, who are like stable, they're done growing, eating grass, like fine. But right now we only have 500,000 bison here in the
Yeah.
United States, when there used to be maybe as many as 60 million.
60
But
million. That's a lot of that's a lot of bison.
that's a lot of
60 million.
bison.
And they're big, Crystal. Are they bigger than cows?
They might be bigger than cows. You
I've
know, we
seen
have to
them.
like exactly compare
Yeah.
the amount of methane to the cows. And you know, we're spending all this money to try to get cows to produce less methane. So maybe we've really reduced the methane needed by cows, but we have 87 million domestic cows in the US. That's way
87.
more. 87 million. That's like more than a third more of
Is that
the
how many we have
highest
on the
end of.
hoof, or is that how many we slaughter every year?
That's how many on the hoof, like
Okay.
right now.
That's how many are like
That's how many are
standing,
right now, standing in
sucking
America
air on
right
this side of
now.
the earth.
87 million.
87 million walking around. Dang. Okay, so and these are hold on, are these dairy and beef
Domestic
cattle?
cows, so
Domestic
dairy
cows.
and beef, yeah.
Okay. Or slaughter bound. They're all I guess they're all
Mhm.
slaughter bound. I don't know how you would I don't like the word calling them beef cows. I hate it when they do that, and I just did it. But
Yeah. Slaughter
sorry,
bound cows.
take away
Yeah.
my vegan card for that one. All right, so but you're the veterinarian. Is there they also have this hyper kind of genetically modified feed, right? The corn is GMO, the soy is GMO.
Mhm.
But buffalo, they lived on like the American bison. Everyone calls them buffalo. I know that that's not really what they're called, but I just call them buffalo because that's what we call them. But they ate sagebrush and stuff. They ate stuff that was growing that they had evolved on this earth to eat.
Yeah.
Mightn't that also be kind of less burpy and
Well,
methane produced? Am I
so here's
crazy
the
to?
thing. Like your grass-fed beef, that's actually worse for the environment. The
Mhm.
grasses produce more methane. The corn and those diets actually produce less methane, maybe. And they
Mm.
have all these additives and things that they can add to reduce the methane. But you know, instead of figuring out how to get cows to reduce methane and like genetically selecting for cows that produce less methane, how about we just produce protein without cows? Like,
Rethink
see,
the
it
whole
seems
protein system. Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Why are we're always trying to solve a problem that maybe shouldn't exist in the first place?
Well,
And
there's
maybe
one
we
quick
gotta.
way to solve the problem, right? And it's not just go vegan though. It's also about calling out authority, questioning the power structures, and thinking critically about this. This is something I think I'm still heartened that what's happening right now in this tumult that we're all living through. I'm hoping that will open some people's eyes, like Dorothy on at the end of the Golden Road, whatever it was called, the Yellow Brick Road, um, or like
Yeah.
Elphaba at the end of. We'll talk about that next time. I hope we'll talk about
Yeah.
Wicked and the animal
Should
rights
we talk
stuff.
about Wicked? Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
love it.
this show's over though, Crystal. This is it.
Yeah.
This is the end. I want to tell everyone to go vegan because obviously it's the only choice for a thinking person who is looking at the world through critical eyes.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm excited that now we're in a time we got front row tickets to whatever happens, Crystal.
Yeah. And turns out you can be healthy without eating animals. And we should also tell companies to do that too. Make it a little bit easier. McDonald's, have board cow milk in your
In your
Happy
Happy Meals.
Meals.
Yeah.
Have some Beyond chicken nuggets for the kids. Like there's no reason for these companies to continue selling animal products when there's a perfectly good animal-free alternative. So make it easier for people to choose to eat a diet that's in alignment with their values.
I mean, they're
So
limiting our food choices. I mean, this is
yeah,
and the future is choice. Despite what Governor Pillen of Nebraska thinks, the future is choice. The future is diversification, biodiversity, and food diversity. That's how we're going to make it through climate change. That's how we're going to make it through is more choices, and those choices are going to be healthier and animal free. They have to be, or else we're not going to make it. Crystal, where can people find you? Like, if they want to know more of and like follow your kind of adventures and stuff. Where are you like
I'm
most
on all
active on
this.
social media?
I'm most active on Twitter, Dr.Crystal Heath. But I'm on all the social media platforms. And where can they find you, Sky?
YouTube mostly. I'm a Skyjack Morgan, and I like to talk about mostly critical thinking in the news. But every Sunday we do Vegan Sunday School, so try to keep it going for the animals. Always speak up, and because I always got a lot to say about it, obviously.
Yeah. And maybe we'll talk about Wicked next week. I saw the play. I have not seen the movie yet.
And I've seen the movie and haven't seen the
so-
play. So that would be, we should both read the book. I've seen the movie. Don't watch the movie. I love
Yeah.
it, but you don't
You
watch
don't
the
want
movie.
me to, okay.
And I won't watch the play, but we'll both read the book, and
Okay.
we'll see where we meet in the middle.
Yeah. That'll be fun and exciting.
I wonder if there's an animal rights message in the book, or are they just like, or did they just put that in the play and that just ended up as a huge part of the movie? It's a major thing in the movie. So we could talk
Yeah.
for an hour about that, I think. I mean, like animal rights in movies, and especially the wicked, it's part of the zeitgeist, right? It's still
Yeah.
topical.
It's still, yeah, people are talking about it.
Yeah,
Wicked
part two isn't even out.
I know. And that's a whole nother thing. Do we have to wait another year for
I
it to
don't
come
know.
out?
I don't know, but it's popular.
Yeah.
Popular.
So yeah, it's good stuff coming up.
Yes, indeed.
And we will always new stuff coming out of the Trump administration, and always new bird flu information coming out.
It is one of the most exciting times to be alive, isn't it? It's like
is.
every day there's something. I'm sure that I'm not gonna live as long as my parents, because every day I'm stressed out about all the new stuff happening, and so like, it's always just a surprise every minute, and I don't know, I'm excited.
May we
why
live
live
in
a boring life?
Yeah, may we live in interesting times, and that's
We
where
do.
we're at. So no more
Yeah.
dooming. Like, we should all be excited
I
and
totally
like
agree.
ready to fight.
Yeah, fight.
You know,
Yeah, we
Let's-
keep fighting. That's
let's
it.
do it. We're not giving up.
Embrace change, and if you embracing change is embracing life. So I choose to embrace change because I love life.
Yeah.
The most exciting time to be alive is now, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the
Stay
show. That's Vegan
tuned.
World.
Donate, support the show.
Yeah.
Public radio.
Public radio is
So-
my favorite. I only listen to listener supported radio. That's all I
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
No advertisements, just an hour long. Just
Hour long,
going.
straight shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah, where else would you be able to do this? And very interesting conversation. We appreciate y'all being live on the air here in Houston, Texas. 90.1 FM on Vegan World Radio. Dr. Crystal Heath and activist Skyjack Morgan. Really interesting conversation, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we hope to have you back regularly because I want to hear that conversation about the animal rights in the movies and all the
Absolutely.
rest. So we'll try to stay excited and not hopeless.
Yes, come on, you
No
got this.
doom.
Do it.
Thanks for
Yeah.
thank you for bringing the fight here to KPFT.
Thank you for having me.